I'm Jerry Craig here on behalf of the Vet Voice podcast and Veterans for America First. I'm happy to introduce you to our newest ambassador, Tony Sabio, who is a retired Secret Service agent and he has a lot of experience. And I want him to share his experiences with you and his perspective of the Secret Service as we now see it. So, Tony, thank you for coming on the podcast. I want to welcome you to speak about your history and tell us a little bit about your work experience with the Secret Service and what you see now.
Well, thank you first off for allowing me to speak on the subject. I've been around to different organizations, all asking me about the same questions. And I have a different perspective. I actually came from the Secret Service, military, and was part of the Special Operations Division. Now, that division consists of the counter snipers and also the SWAT team, which is counter assault team and emergency response team. I had the pleasure to serve in the emergency response team under President Bush. It was a very great, distinguished service I did, and I was very proud of that. After that, I went to the CIA, where I served my country for 11 years, fighting against terrorism. Now, when I look at what we're seeing in our society, and especially in the Secret Service, certain things, insecurity that is uniformed, things that need to be done no matter. First and foremost is looking at the threat level of your protectees or anything, even if it's a base. You look at the current threat levels and you gear the security towards it. That was one thing that we actually did in the Secret Service. We designed security based upon the threat level. And what we're seeing in the Secret Service right now, especially with the former President Trump's team, the lack of really identifying all the threats that are out there, which are numerous threats out there. And we're talking threats from domestic terror to also foreign threats, foreign adversaries that have also made claim that they want to assassinate the former president of the United States. Now, these things should be the baseline, the foundation, any operational movement that you do, whether it's a motorcade protecting his residence down in Florida or the rallies. But what we're seeing is a lack of caring of the mission based on the foundation. And they provided him Secret Service. They provided him the least level amount that's given to a foreign president. Now, with this current cycle, we have an election. He is the number one candidate going up against Democrat. He was the former president that was very instrumental on a lot of things we did in the sector. So we made a lot of enemies. And now we're looking at the level of protection is equal to what they should provide, but it doesn't equal to the threat level. Like I said, it's the foundational level you look at when you design any support, any security policies, procedures. Now that is the first baseline, what they failed on. It's the basic fundamentals, developing that foundation.
What I'm seeing, we had DEI that has infiltrated so much of our federal government, and diversity, equity, and inclusion doesn't seem to touch on lethality, doesn't talk about efficacy, doesn't talk about redundancies. And like you said, it doesn't even touch on the issue of the threat level to find whatever needs to be done, notwithstanding the line of sight, the line of fire, if you would. Yeah. And the other things that really illustrate that, and what's troubling is, even though it's unrelated, FEMA, they have recently been discovered as to assessing resources based upon DEI and what they determine to be underprivileged, at-risk members of society, which obviously are the LGBTQ, XYZ, etc. folks. And we're talking about hurricane relief. And we're getting away from the core principle of what's going on. Now, with Secret Service, a lot of people are unaware as to what the primary duties are in protecting presidents, ex-presidents, their families, and other concerned members where there is a threat level present. Candidates can ask for certain details, but just from my own personal experience, I have been back and forth to Mar-a-Lago several times, many times. And I noticed at the Butler rally, Pennsylvania, the first one back in July, I didn't recognize any of those Secret Service agents. They did not seem to appear as organized, as on the spot. And I'm not going to make fun of any one person. but they definitely were a different group of people. I know some of them by first name, and I won't call them out, but I hear that they were reassigned within 2 days. And he was asked for additional detail for the Butler County and was granted at the last minute just a very small amount of what he asked for, including snipers. So thankfully that the first Butler rally did not end with an assassination. And but we shouldn't have even allowed the first shot to be fired. And not to go down the conspiracy theory, but there were too many mistakes in order that we had to rely on, I guess, the miracle of that immigration chart that Trump was looking at off to his right. When you were in the Secret Service, uh, well, let me put it this way. Had you been in that rally while you're in Secret Service, that's a hard hypothetical here, but did you find some concerns and some criticisms as to what you saw, either from your own perspective, your research, or from the media's angle?
So let's get this straight when I talk about this. The Butler rally, and then the subsequent second attempt at his golf course, complete failures of the sequence. One mission. One mission is to protect your protected. Now, we have seen a different culture. I have friends who are still in the Secret Service, and the culture has changed. DEI has infiltrated the way through. When we look at developing security, we're looking at developing security based on. You have a 6'2" protectee. You cannot have a 5'2" female. That is just disproportionate to protection, especially in the inner circle where your whole job is to shield. It's virtually impossible.
Right.
But we have DEI culture that says we need to have a certain amount of females covering a certain amount of protectees. But yet we're not looking at the essence of what we're trying to do. That job requires you to cover, move and cover. So you have to have the ability to cover that protectee with your body shield and also pick up that protectee and move them to a different location if need be. Pick them up. So physically, you're putting people in a bad situation where they're going to fail automatically. So the failure starts from the very beginning, starts with a detail that's selected and covered. Second to that, it failed within the advanced work. Now, in advanced work, you're supposed to go out there and identify all risks. From those risks, you need to come out with contingency. The other failure that happened is the failure of manpower. Now, we start looking at manpower as an essence of we need more. It's not the case. You can give Secret Service billions upon billions upon billions of dollars. The manpower issue is the overstretch of duties. Right now, you have a mission Secret Service that's doing counterfeit. Back when I came in, we switched over from Treasury to Homeland Security. FBI started taking over a lot of the counterfeit missions. A lot of Secret Service hold on to that because if you go look at some of the high-paying jobs on the outside when they retire, such as director of security for some of the major banks out there, you will see a lot of Secret Service in those positions getting paid, $300,000 to $500,000 a year. This is a money thing. Follow the money to. There's no reason for us to have a dual mission with the FBI. What they need to do is cut that mission down. That's half the budget. They cut that mission down, that manpower comes back into protective operations. Now you can beef up with the additional dollars you have, more of protective intelligence investigations. Now you're going down and checking out all the leads out there. You're not saying we don't have the manpower to do this. You're checking out all the leads, you're running it to the ground, and you're working with the agency, the CIA, in the overseas area for foreign threats. You got to scale down and you got to push it to the areas that you actually need to operate. My mission is and also foreign presidents. Second to that, what they did and this is one of the things that really blows my mind. What they did was hire or pull in a lot of people from Homeland Security.
Right.
They provided 1 hour training, which the
Yeah.
training courses I went through, I went through academy. It's about 26 weeks. They got 1 hour training on this kind of stuff. And those are supposed to fill in the gaps. And why? Because they have other missions that pull Secret Service, such as dignitary protection. Secret
Right.
Service provides dignitary protection out there for heads of states, certain heads of state. And even with the UNG, about 600 personnel were sent up to UNG and to prepare for the UNG, when that shouldn't even be a Secret Service mission. That should be a State Department mission and a Homeland Security mission. But
Right.
yet, we pulled Homeland Security agents to cover the former president of the United States and then shipped off professional, trained Secret Service agents to cover what should be a Homeland Security mission.
From
So it's
countries that
completely
hate us,
backwards.
including Iran, right? I mean, we
Yes,
need Secret Service to protect the president of Iran at a time where he had put out a hit against President Trump.
and it's completely crazy. As an American, I want my presidents and former president and presidential candidates covered by the Secret Service, not DHS. And on top of that, I honestly don't care about the president of Zimbabwe or any other countries. They don't need Secret Service. Our first priority is the president of the United States. They can get DHS or State Department on that. But it's backwards. That's why, because the culture, the leadership wants a presence there instead of just honing into one mission. And you have a lot of people out there applying. I found out through a lot of my sources, you have a lot of veterans that applied. But because there's this DEI culture, they had to balance out the amount of veterans that come from real tactical experience in war versus how many people come straight out of college. And they denied a lot of good, solid veterans that understand the mission and understand the severity of making a mistake. And that is a weakness right there. I say, to the Secret Service leadership, why are you not hiring veterans, primarily veterans? If you have 100 veterans, they all want to come in and they're all qualified and they all meet the standards. They all should have first in line to do that.
That's what you talk about, the qualifications. That after the first Butler rally, it was found out through some channels that the advanced say security scan when they try to figure out the venue, and there's many venues, but the gentleman who was in charge of flying the drone for the aerial view and oversight, he didn't know how to operate the drone. He was contacting the manufacturer asking for some instructions on how to fly the drone. And that's absurd. My 12-year-old daughter can fly a drone. Definitely military servicemen and women who have experience working with these types of equipment could easily figure this out. And it just wasn't done. They just did not do the aerial scan. And then additionally, at the golf course where the shooter was stopped from even getting a fire off, that advanced search, it seems strange because even though the paparazzi are aware of that location, that's where they set up. It's known for a loophole, not a loophole, a hole in the fence to get normally a snapshot at President Trump while he's on the golf course. And if we know that photographers are there, how can we allow someone to go 12 hours in advance and set up camp right there? I think it's a product of the hiring and training shortcomings.
And I agree. When we look at the reason they say this is an off the record movement is actually, it's very surprised. So how did this person know that he was actually going to be there? We don't know that. Second to that, and I don't want to go in conspiracy that someone tipped them off. That's a whole nother thing that needs to be investigated. But let's just look at the location was a known location. Now, the average time to golf in one hole is probably about 15 minutes.
Yeah.
This is hole 6. Okay. You have more than enough time to get from point A to point B. And to have an advance on the outside, I actually did that particular mission where you're on the out, you're pushing ahead of the president. I did it with President Bush, clearing the fairway. And what it is really just kind of doing a quick scan through. Now the person was found, and they say they saw, former President Trump said he saw the barrel of the gun sticking through the fence. The guy, you're not going to see, not through that area. What he saw, and this is the only saving grace, former President Trump, was a guy who wore a pink shirt. Now, a pink shirt in brush, we all know, military, even hunters know, you're going to see that. You're going to see pink. If this person was wearing any other color, brown, black, green, wouldn't have seen it. You're not going to see a barrel of a gun sitting in there, especially from a low position within the brush. Now, there's many ways to solve this. One, local law enforcement. Have local law enforcement sweep the area. They're always assigned. When the president's there, local law enforcement is going to be on the outside. Patrol through the area. Second to that, people said roll drones out. Well, drones with thermal are good, but with the heat, it's kind of going to wash out. We all know. But one thing that they do have, Secret Service has, because I was a SWAT canine, and my dog was meant to find people, especially in Camp David and different areas we went to. If you look at the photo of when the person was apprehended, there was a dog. Now, dogs are phenomenal. They had dogs in there. That sheriff department has dogs. All the Secret Service had to do was request a canine area. Would have brought the dog out, the dog would have found that person. And these are easy things. So we're looking at off the record movement. No, you had time. It's just off the record movement. You find out, yes, it's off the record, but the president has to get dressed and get everything prepped. There's a little bit of prep time. When we think about off the record movements, it's taking a motorcade and all of a sudden the president says, I want to get some ice cream. Well, that's off the record movement. It's very spontaneous. You really don't have time to advance it. This is not the same. The president has to start getting dressed, moving over to the golf course. There's a lot of things that it takes, a lot of minutes, and it doesn't take that long, especially if that is a vulnerability where there's a complete line of sight to shoot someone right to that corner, to look at that area, whether it put a dog out there or a person. This is complete failure. And it's a lot of, lack of training, understanding resources out there, and also complete complacency. The Secret Service tout this as a success. It's a complete failure because it's only successful was because the person made a mistake by wearing a pink shirt.
In the top brass, they came out very hard afterwards saying they were going to look into accountability. But I don't think they fired anybody. I don't think that we had the lady step down who was in charge of the Butler rally, but and the name of the gentleman escapes me who took the press conference, but they talk a lot about accountability but didn't do anything. And you're right, they're touting both events as a success, although the shooter got off anywhere between 4 and 8 rounds. And the other gentleman had gotten 12 hours of breaching the perimeter. It's not a success. And we see President Trump constantly praising those around him. And I would too. I would praise all of them that are willing to jump in and take a bullet. But on the same note, we can't overlook the shortcomings and the effect of hiring ineffective people who are not qualified or plainly incapable, like you mentioned, the 5'2" service agent trying to protect someone who's 6'3". I saw that immediately, but with that being said, I can't lay the fault on her hands. It's the upper brass, it's those who assigned her to this. And the rotation of schedules, the ability of the different agents, it's noticeable. And someone who always keeps his head on a swivel, from my personal experiences, I've noticed these things, but didn't really know the impact of it. And I definitely couldn't have forecast these things happening this year. But I appreciate you coming and sharing your insight. It's either confirmed or explained some of the things that some of the viewers may have had questions about. And it really nails down the impact of what Secret Service, what we rely on them for, and if they don't do their job, the potential harm that can be done from that. So what would you say would be the number one thing that Secret Service needs to focus on as it moves forward to protect whoever wins in November?
Well, there's a couple of things they got. First off, and I can be very harsh with this, is the top brass of the Secret Service needs to be released. They need to resign. They need to leave. They create a culture, and even with the the deputy getting promoted, he was part of that culture. The culture needs to change. And that's hard to say because some of these people, they just need to retire and move on. Second to that, you need to have an independent body come in and do a complete evaluation. It can't be the Secret Service itself. It has to be trained professionals that either are former Secret Service that are appalled with what's going on, or people with former military in protective service backgrounds come in there to do an independent evaluation of the company. And that also includes the training, the amount of training. And then Congress needs to talk to the Secret Service, needs to mandate the Secret Service to pull away the investigative positions or investigative mission for counterfeit and solely concentrate on protective operations and build that up. Those are the things you need to take care of. And without that, I'm afraid that we're going to have a continuation of this. What can President Trump do right now? It's kind of hard to say. A lot of people say that he could hire his own, security. That's virtually going to be impossible because they're going to be unarmed because Secret Service is not going to allow them to have weapons. Former President of the United States. And he shouldn't have to do that. He's the lead. He's the leading candidate for President of the United States. Even if you look at it's still an election, he's polling very well. He can virtually be president come here on November 5th. And second to that, what he needs to do is look at getting somebody that is independent to work directly for him to be quality assurance for the seniors. Because right now we see our government, and just like myself and everyone else that's listening to this podcast, we've lost trust now in every facet of our government. I used to pride myself that the Secret Service, coming from the CIA, everyone thinks the CIA is always up. But the Secret Service has always been that shining beacon that I had that was pure. The mission was so pure that it can't be infiltrated with doubt. They've created such doubt with all these different things happening that former President Trump is going to have to, in my opinion, humble opinion, hire an independent person to do quality assurance on his detail and make sure the Secret Service is doing their job. And it's pretty scary that we have to rely on independent sources to come in to verify what our government is doing as far.
Well, I think that's a lot. There's a lot to be done, but it starts off with the ideology of the department, changing the way that we think, changing the way that they think. Because if you have an alternative consideration in any new function, it's going to take away from your focus of your core purpose. Even if you're having a juggling hula hoop, the hula hoop slows down the juggling and vice versa. And what I see was the DEI, the wokeness, and the political angle of social issues infiltrating our military, federal officers, and now the Secret Service, who was once the beacon of integrity, nonpartisan protection of all presidents and protected parties, candidates, family members. And it's sad that we have the chance now to get the White House back. And I fully believe that without President Trump getting back in the White House, we're going to see more of this internal destruction. And our enemies are sitting back laughing while we destroy ourselves. So they're going to just walk in the front door at the optimal time. So, Tony, thank you for coming on the podcast. I appreciate your insight.
You go on my ex, Tony_Sabio. There, I'm speaking about a lot of different issues that are going on within Secret Service, within politics, and even within our local government and our local GOP units. There's a lot of things we need to fix, and it takes us banding together. And we're seeing a lot of division still, even in this last final stretch. So please reach out with there. I'll be more than happy to add you. And if you have any questions, reach me out on X. I'll be more than happy to answer any more questions on the Secret Service or anything else.
Well, thank you very much. And once again, we've got very little time and a lot to do. So keep talking, and I'll keep up my end of the bargain of putting forward the America First agenda as much as my voice will let me. So you keep doing what you're doing, and hopefully we'll fight to the end and we can prevail in November.
Thank you, sir.